Welcome, Democrats. Thank you for joining us tonight for the meeting of the San Ramon Valley Democratic Club. My name is Brody Hill. I serve as co-president, along with co-president Richard Adler, who's here tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As you know, we're witnessing the decimation of our American system of government, and it is far-reaching, even including science. As I mentioned last week, I read Science magazine, and even this journal with scientific research. There was an editorial by the editor about how much of the funding for scientific and medical research will no longer be funded. And so moreover, now it's happening to all parts of government. Trump is ripping apart Medicare, Social Security, national parks, Postal Service, the Department of Education. Maybe the goal is that after our government is no longer functioning, he can declare a crisis and rule as a dictator. As you know, Trump is correct to make the guest list for dinner with him. Many people bought millions of dollars worth of his meme coin, directly lining Trump's pocket because he makes money off every transaction. It is unbelievably corrupt, and the American people deserve, at minimum, to know who's paying for the private access to the President of the United States. But as Professor Robert Reich and many other people have proclaimed, we must protest this destruction of our government. And there are many protests in our area. The one closest to us is in Walnut Creek. It's an event of Indivisible East Bay Resistors. And tonight we have a speaker from Indivisible Resistors, Kathryn Durham-Hammer. She is a former lawyer for community-based nonprofits with a background in UC Berkeley law. She has been active in our local Democratic Party. She was the past District 4 director for the Democratic Party of Contra, Costa County. She's been the past president of the Diablo Valley Democratic Club, past PTA president of Ignacio Valley High School, and delegate to the California Democratic Party Convention. On the lighter side, she's also a Zumba fitness instructor and owner of Wildcat Fitness in Concord and Pleasant Hill. Thank you, Kathryn, for coming to our meeting tonight, and thank you for helping us organize the resistor protests.
Thank you for having me back, Brody. I'm really glad to be back and see you all. You're awesome.
So tell us about what's happening.
All right. So first of all, who's heard about No Kings? June 14th.
Oh, yes. But tell us more.
That's everybody out. That's everybody in the street. That's bigger than April 5th. That's get outside, get your friends, get your family, get your dogs, get everybody out there. So we have a big protest in Broadway Plaza at our usual time, 11:30. But then we're going to have a people's parade through Walnut Creek. And we're going to make it happen one way or another. We may end up in the street. We're going to try not to, but you know, if we have enough people, we're going to go for it. You can wear costumes. If you want to wear your crowns or you want to dress like a clown, like there's a whole nother theme with the Women's March of Kick Out the Clowns, but we're going with the indivisible theme of No Kings. We're also after the Broadway Plaza event, which is from 11:30 to 1. It's a little longer this time. We're going to have overpass actions with big signs that say No Kings, because we just want to be visible as possible. We might do something like they did in Chicago another time with like one of those miles long protests, but not this time, but we'll definitely consider that for later. There are other protests happening on that day in Antioch and Pleasant Hill. So I just want to make sure that that's like really high priority on everyone's calendar, if possible. In the meantime, we still have our Saturday action, Tesla takedown / hands off. I've got my hands off shirt on. You know, / everything, you know, just we have so many things to focus on this weekend. We are focusing on healthcare. It's on our minds. We have a doctor speaking. Mark Desaulnier is going to be speaking. But we're not spending a lot of time speaking because we get a lot of feedback that people just want to get out on the street and get honks and waves and feel the energy, and so they don't really want to stand around and hear speeches. But we have those two great speakers, at least for you. We have weekly actions going on during the weekdays. We have the La Miranda Peace and Justice does their Tuesday action from 5 to 6 in Lafayette. There is now a We the People Wednesdays at Ignacio Valley Road and Civic Drive every Wednesday at 5 to 6. There's also an action on an overpass in Martinez every Friday. I think it's at 3, I'm not sure.
Could you go over those again?
Sure.
I want to write them down.
Yeah, so Tuesday is Lafayette. It's La Miranda Peace and Justice is the lead organizer. It's 5 to 6. I'll send you all the details.
Can you put that in chat for us?
I don't have it in front of me, but it's in the most recent email. Do you get the emails from Indivisible Resistors?
Well, I know, but I'm thinking of everyone here.
I don't have it in front of me, but I can provide it to you to share later.
Or the website, or
Sure, indivisibleresistors.com. Place to go. I think it's .com.
okay.
All right.
Okay, and so and Tuesday you're on where? You are
That's the Lafayette. It's by that little park on, I forget, is it Mount Diablo? I can't remember the name of the road. So I don't want to steer you the
but
wrong way.
we can look at the website, yeah.
Yeah, and then We the People Wednesdays is at Ignacio Valley Road and Civic Drive every Wednesday, 5 to 6 p.m.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's a new one, and it's really popular because it's such a busy rush hour location, so it's a good one. I want to give a heads up. We spoke a little bit, or I heard Brody and others speak about immigration. That is a very urgent call to action that is right on the horizon. There is ICE presence at the Concord Deportation Court, and they're also in San Francisco at the Deportation Court. So we're waiting for specific instructions from our partners in the immigration advocacy space. Ali Saidi will give us more instructions about what we can do, especially at the Deportation Court in Concord. So I will pass that along as soon as we have that information. But it's an urgent call to action.
Yeah, we've had Ali Saidi, who's a public defender, come speak at our meeting a couple of times. And do you think he would be a good speaker?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay.
Okay, so please just keep that on your radar as something that is going to be needed within maybe days. We're just not sure exactly the timing. I may have mentioned last time we're collaborating with the Congressman DeSaulnier and DPCCC, Labor, and Rossmore, and I think they may be collaborating also with Commit to Democracy, but we're doing more of a monthly meeting to kind of figure out how each of us can contribute and work together so that we're not just working separately. We really need to be collaborating with each other, kind of know what each other's doing, use each other's sort of resources. Like, for instance, we have people, right? So if there's something that needs to be done, if there's action that needs to be taken, we can get the people out. Then the congressman can tell us what the effects are of us getting the people out, which then galvanizes the people. So he can say, hey, your protests are having an impact in this way, X, Y, Z. And so then we can convey that to the people who are going out, and then they feel like their action is effective. And then, of course, the Democratic Party has action that for elections and other action that we can amplify and support. And your club and the DPCCC and so many other clubs around the county have been amplifying all of the actions that we're organizing. There are some virtual town halls with the congressman coming up. There's one on June 2nd. It's organized by Commit to Democracy. I don't have the link handy, but I can
With
send.
Mark DeSaulnier?
Yes.
Oh.
And then we're going to be doing a virtual town hall with Mark DeSaulnier in August, but we don't have the exact date yet. We're waiting for him to confirm. And then a little bit further out, it might be August 3rd, but it may be later in the year. Commit to Democracy and Indivisible Resistors, Contra Costa, are organizing an activist kind of action fair at Civic Park. And we'll have a picnic. We might have a human banner. And we'll just have a chance for all the action groups, Democratic clubs, whoever wants to come and table, to come out, meet each other, and be together at the park. So stay tuned for that. Everybody will be invited to that. I think that's my list, but if you have questions, happy to
That's
answer.
good. I've been to the one at, was it Civic and Broadway? Is that the where we were, or Treat?
Which one was that?
It was a protest at Civic, and it was a few weeks ago.
Ignacia.
Oh, Ignacio, yes, yes. And there was a lot more traffic there, so that was good too.
Yes, that's exactly where the Wednesday action is, at 5 every Wednesday.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, thank you, Kathryn. Thank you for all you do. And who are the leaders of the resistors besides yourself? Is
So
it?
we have a steering committee of 5, and we've been working together since 2017. So we've just been grinding along, and it's myself, OG Strogatz. I'm sure everybody knows OG.
Yeah.
Powerhouse, amazing. Amy Huey, also just always active, always showing up. Gwen Gilson and Chris Lazara.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for updating us. I appreciate you. We're going to probably have you back to let us know what other things are going on.
Anytime.
If you have any information you could put in chat, we'd appreciate it.
Okay.
So thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, let's see, we have 15 minutes. So I was at the last protest on Saturday in Walnut Creek and Broadway Plaza, and I wanted to share some photos I took of the signs people held during the protest. You might want to get a pencil and paper because these signs were very creative and might help you make your own signs for when you go. So I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's see if I can get to the right place. Here we go. Can everybody see it? Okay. Oops.
It worked that time, Brody.
I know, I finally got it to work. Before I was trying to get the music in the background. Did you all hear the music in the background? Oh,
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Oh, good. Good, good, good. And
Very,
so,
very nice.
thank you. I mean, those signs were wonderful. Um, and so now, um, let's see, we now have Richard Adler's going to speak. As you know, he's our co-president, but he's also a Ceremony City Council member who represents District 2. He was appointed to fill the position of Mark Armstrong, who was elected mayor in November of 2024 election. So Mark had 2 remaining years of his council term for District 2, and a lot of people were interviewed, and Richard was chosen to fill Mark's seat at the council. And thank you, Richard. Richard's going to update us about what's happening in San Ramon.
Thank you, Brody. It's good to be here and good to be in this position to discuss the city of San Ramon.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's one of those positions I've been trying to get ready for in the last few years by getting on a lot of committees and understanding the city. But one thing you don't realize, I think, if you get on the city council, is how many committees you get assigned to beyond your normal 2 city council meetings that you have. I mean, that's just a small part of it. It's the other meetings that you go to that take up a lot of time, and it's nice if you're retired like I am, because you have more time to do these things. But just as an example, on Saturday, I'm also president of my Rotary Club until the end of June, and so we had our big truck time event in San Ramon near the city center, and that's where we have vehicles for kids to and parents and kids to come and see. And so I did that in the morning, and then I had 2 Eagle Scout presentations in the afternoon. We have a couple Boy Scout troops in San Ramon. So I went to both of those presentations for the Eagle Scouts that were able to make that designation. It's difficult to be an Eagle Scout. There's only like 6%. So that's just an example of what I did on Saturday. But San Ramon, we have our goals, and of course, number one is safety. Um, we have a really good, I think, police force, and we are able to get by with a smaller budget than some of the local cities because we have a pretty safe community. We were able to get a grant. I'm not sure which congressman may have gotten us that grant, but we have a drone program grant, so we're able to see high up in the air, and if there is an incident, we can get a better bird's eye view and then direct resources that are necessary. We're also very much into the vehicle safety, and one of the other things I was asked to do by some high school kids that were doing their civic end of year civic project, and they wanted to know about safety on the Iron Horse Trail. So they gave me 10 questions, and I immediately got on the phone to the transportation director, and we went over a lot of these questions. And then I typed it out. I felt like I was back in college getting ready for an exam or writing a term paper, but it's really good, and it helps me kind of get up to speed on what's going on with safety in the trail. And as you know, we have an Iron Horse Bollinger Crossing bridge that has been built the last year, and we are scheduled to open the bridge in August. And a few of us were, fortunate enough to be able to don a hard hat and steel-toed boots and get a kind of a sneak preview of the bridge a couple weeks ago. And it's all completed except for the lighting. It's going to really be a nice visual at night to see the Bollinger Iron Horse Crossing bridge. And there's also some, landscaping that needs to be done. But that is really going to help traffic because we don't have, traffic won't have to stop for pedestrians crossing like we've had to do in the past. They can actually just go right over, the Bollinger Canyon Road. And we are also going to be making a bridge in the future at Crow Canyon. And that bridge isn't going to be quite as ornate. I think the Bollinger is kind of the gateway to the city. It's a little nicer bridge than the Crow Canyon will be, but they'll both be really important and functional. And one of the things I've really emphasized this year, I mean, as Rotary president, is mental health. And as we've got a couple of years ago, I guess it's been when Rebecca Bauer-Cahan was talking about the 988, being able to call if there's a mental health crisis. And before it was always the police that would take charge. But now we have a really good system. And I understand like 80% of the calls that come in, and they have to figure out is there a safety issue where the police may have to be there. But 80% of those have been going to the San Ramon Valley Fire District and the proper personnel that can handle mental health calls. And it's been a great program. They're very efficient. I hope other states can emulate what we're doing here in Contra Costa County with the mental health resources. And I indicated that I think I indicated we had some budget problems last year, so we had about a $17 million budget deficit last year, and that is the reason why they did Measure N, which fortunately was passed in the November election, and that is giving us a little over $15 million a year for 10 years. And unlike other propositions that might be in the ballot, this is really just going to go for the city services. And and this is a 1% sales tax. So if you're going to shop locally, because it really does help. The sales tax helps the budget, and you're you're giving business to the local businesses, and that's really good. And so it was a crucial step to have that passed. We had to do like a across the board 10% slashing of the budget because we have to have a balanced budget. But now we're able to bring back some of these programs, and we are, of course, known for our parks. We have about 62 parks in San Ramon. And you need staff and maintenance to maintain the quality of those parks. So we just have to be careful, how we allocate the funds going forward. And a lot of it was COVID and cost of living had gone up, and it just suddenly got out of hand. So I feel a lot better about that. So what we're doing now, the big projects, of course, we have the mixed use city center building that you're seeing in the Bishop Ranch area. We have a lot of areas designated by numbers, Bishop Ranch 1 and goes on to 7 and 8, and all these are going to be living and mixed use business. So we're going to have both. We're going to have both. We're going to have housing. We're going to have businesses. We are going to have, of course, a certain amount of below market housing, which the state requires. And the idea is to have a walkability district in Bishop Ranch as these are built, that people can either walk or ride their bikes to the, for instance, city center. And that'll cut down hopefully on traffic, and people who have jobs hopefully can work within San Ramon, and they don't have to get in a car and drive as much as we have in the past. So, I'm really, really happy about the direction. We are going to have a big, as you know, Chevron is pretty much moved out. We had Chevron Park. which a lot of people never saw because it was, there's a gate in front of there. But I fortunately had an opportunity when I was in the Leadership San Ramon Valley class, and we went in there, and it was it reminded me of a college campus. Well, that area is going to be built for housing and also business use. And that is going to be looked at in the coming months. So I would stay tuned on that. Somebody had asked me if we could build another bridge, but I think we have limited resources, and people are going to have to cross. People that work or that live in that area, and it's going to be called the Orchards. That Chevron Park is going to be called the Orchards, and of course you'll be able to cross Bollinger to get over to the city center. They tried to look at a bridge cost. They tried to look at a like a below ground thing, and it's just very expensive to do that. So we're not going to be doing that. But we have some great facilities. We have a retirement facility that opened back in April, I believe, right off Bollinger in the Bishop Ranch area, and it's a beautiful area. And it was delayed getting open because of the LA fires and everything. This company that runs it also has facilities all around California. And they, at the grand opening, they had a lot of the San Ramon Valley, the fire personnel there because they wanted to show the appreciation for what they did in the LA fire area that we had earlier in the year. So these things are being built gradually, but I'm really happy with the progress that we've made so far. So I'm trying to think of what other, and one thing, when you get on the council, you realize how important businesses are. And I can't tell you how many ribbon cutting events I've gone to, but you really want the local businesses to be successful. And so we have the Chamber of Commerce and so on that helps. But I don't know if you have been going. I live in District 2, right over near Clementine's or in that area. And you probably remember Chevy's, that restaurant. I mean, it was there and then it was not, then it closed down. And I was wondering, why don't they build something in that little mall there, that strip mall? And part of it is that we've had a requirement that only 25% of the businesses can be non-retail. And so apparently that delayed putting in the preschool that is going to be opening soon. But fortunately, it's almost done. And we also have a charging station over there. And so, but cities, of course, don't want to see business just sitting there, not used. And so not having that requirement of 25% non-retail, you can bring in other things other than like stores where you sell merchandise. I mean, like schools and things like that can qualify. So hopefully we'll get more of those businesses in the city. So anyway, I think that's kind of a brief rundown on that. And I don't know if anybody has any questions, but or curiosities about what's going on.
Well, thank you. Thank you for updating us because there's a lot going on in San Ramon. So thank you very much, Richard.
Yeah, sure.
And I see we have our speaker here. And so I would like to introduce our next speaker, who's Dr. Sean Gailmard. How do you pronounce your name?
You nailed it.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. I wasn't sure. He is the Herman Royer Professor of Political Economy at UC Berkeley, and he studies how political institutions operate, change, and affect governance quality. And his work focuses particularly on the U.S. executive branch, checks and balances
Turn on the heat,
across.
please.
Excuse me, what's happening? Could you please mute yourself if you're not speaking? I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, okay, his work focuses particularly on the U.S. executive branch, checks and balances across branches of government, bureaucratic capacity, and the evolution of U.S. institutions. And he applies strategic and historical perspectives to these issues. He's written several books, including one of them is Making of American Political Institutions. And another one is Learning While Governing, Expertise and Accountability in the Executive Branch. So thank you, Dr. Gailmard, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join you, and thank you for that introduction. So as I understand it, you'd like to talk and to hear some remarks about the recent changes in administrative politics under the Trump administration. And so I will talk a little bit about this, and then I'd be interested to hear your comments and feedback and questions and discussion. So. Okay, so I may give you a slightly different take than you may expect from your garden variety Berkeley faculty, but hopefully it will be informative and worth your while. So I'll jump right in. I think looking at the structure of the administration, I think a lot about the relationship between the political side, that's the president and the White House, and the bureaucratic side, that's the permanent bureaucracy. So we have kind of two broad streams of the permanent bureaucracy. One is the cabinet stream bureaucracies like the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of State, Department of Defense, Department of Health and Human Services, basically anything with department in the name. And then there's another stream of independent regulatory agencies like the Securities and Exchange Commission or the National Labor Relations Board. And what these bodies all do is they carve up a massive landscape of social, economic, health, and all domains of public policy. And they have all developed extensive programs and a high degree of expertise in regulating the political economy of the United States. And it's worked effectively for many years. The state structures were built over the last, starting mostly around 100, 110 to 100 years ago, 1930s to 1960s. The bureaucratic side of these structures was built in a period of strongly shared agreement between political parties, Republicans and Democrats, about basic functions of the state. And what we see now and have started to see really since the 80s, but has been amplified quite drastically, is we see a fraying and maybe even some failures of those basic shared agreements about the functions of the state. The Republicans and Democrats fundamentally disagree to an extent we just haven't seen in looking around this Zoom room in any of our lifetimes. We just haven't seen this degree of fundamental disagreement. And that really drives a lot of what is happening in the Trump administration right now. That's kind of the skeleton key for it. So let me tell you about two concrete changes that are in terms of the relation between the political side of the executive branch and the bureaucratic side. That nexus is where policy control kind of lives. And these are two of the biggest changes that we've seen in bureaucratic structure in my lifetime or in the last 40 or 50 years. So one of them is that in January, actually it might have been in February, President Trump issued an executive order claiming a procedure or a practice called regulatory review extends to all independent regulatory commissions. This is a practice by which the White House, the political side, oversees, evaluates, revises, or vetoes the proposed regulations of bureaucratic agencies. Regulatory review is carried out in the Office of Management and Budget, It is, so regulations are like laws made by agencies. When we look at, what happens if you want to convert a gas station to an apartment complex? Well, you have to certify that the soil isn't contaminated, with leached gasoline, and the Environmental Protection Agency will be involved in that, and they will apply a body of regulations that they themselves developed, okay, pursuant to the Clean Water Act and the Toxic Substance Control Act. The EPA develops those rules internally. Those are called regulations. They have a force of law. They're developed entirely within bureaucratic agencies. Since the Reagan administration, the political side of the White House has asserted control, veto power, basically, over regulations by cabinet stream departments, including EPA, including anything with department in the title, Health and Human Services, et cetera. So regulatory review has been a reality for 45 years for the cabinet stream. But the independent agencies under the design of Congress have pursued their regulatory mission without that kind of oversight. That has never happened before. So when the Securities and Exchange Commission develops regulations about how brokers, stockbrokers can advertise for new business, how they can be compensated, how they can disclose information, those regulations are developed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. When the National Labor Relations Board certifies union elections in a place of business, in a private employer, it applies its own body of regulations. As of now, the Trump administration has claimed control, including veto power, over regulations issued by independent agencies. So that's a pretty profound change in the allocation of power within the executive branch. The degree of independence that independent agencies have with respect to the president is now a lot less. So that's one really significant change. That's an assertion of greater presidential control over the policy-making process in the executive branch. The other most important change structurally that I see going on right now is a reclassification of a large number of civil servants in the permanent bureaucracy of the US. And when we study politics and analyze and examine politics, the permanent bureaucrats, the career bureaucrats, are not necessarily the most exciting people for front page news, but they are the lifeblood of policy expertise in this country. They work for decades, they build careers, they develop expertise on the areas they work on. They grow the expertise of a new cadre of regulators that comes in behind them. So their permanent status is important for policy continuity and expertise. And so the Trump administration has created a new schedule of the civil service called Schedule Policy/Career. And if you pay attention to politics, you've certainly heard about it. The first Trump administration came up with something very similar called Schedule F. Schedule F is a new class in the permanent civil service, and that was rescinded immediately by the Biden administration. And now Trump came in, hit the ground running, and has implemented it. It's now called Policy/Career. The Policy/Career series of the civil service is a new classification of permanent career bureaucrats. They're not political appointees. They're not elected officials. They're competitive service bureaucrats whose position involves substantial content of influencing public policy. So policy/career just means they're career appointees and their position involves substantial policy influence. This is somewhere between 15 to 25% of the competitive service, non-military civil service that's regulated by the Merit Systems Protection Board in the US. It's a lot of people, and it's a lot of important positions within the regulatory process. The policy/career schedule claims for the president authority to unilaterally terminate policy/career employees for any reason, including policy disagreement. And so that's a really big change. As of now, the competitive service rules only allow termination of career bureaucrats for cause. You need to and the president is almost never involved in terminating individual bureaucrats right now. For cause under civil service law in the United States requires that the government show that someone is derelict in their duty, or is incompetent, or has engaged in some type of official corruption in order to be terminated from their position. So civil servants don't, there's kind of a loose metaphor of tenure for civil servants. Some of you maybe are civil servants, I don't know. It's not entirely that they can't, certainly isn't true that they cannot be terminated, but they do have a right of due process for termination, and they can only be terminated for cause. So the policy/career executive order that President Trump just issued, and now has been followed up actually by a regulation, so they're really doing this, that allows the president to terminate civil servants with a policy influence position involves a policy influencing character for any reason, including policy disagreement. So the nuts and bolts are, if a civil servant has spent 25 years in the Clean Water Office of the Environmental Protection Agency, developing a regulatory program to remove public water pipes that have lead in them. Okay, that's the kind of thing a bureaucrat in such an office would do. They make it their mission, and they spend over a decade figuring out, how do we get the government to require this and actually to pay for it? Because in a lot of cases, the cities that still have lead pipes in the public water supply don't have anywhere close to the money required to retrofit them. So doing that is somebody's job, a job of many people in the EPA. So the policy/career regulation allows the president to terminate a person in that position because they disagree with the policy objectives that the person has pursued in their work. Okay, so structurally speaking, these are the two biggest changes in the relation between the political side and the bureaucratic side that has happened in my lifetime. They are, as far as anybody currently can say, they're both close to legal. There are some legal challenges to the policy/career regulation, the new schedule for the civil service. They have to do with that the regulation would violate union contracts with certain classes of civil servants. So unions are involved in lawsuits, but those lawsuits are trying to exempt some people currently classified in policy/career. There's no real argument that the president lacks the authority under some collection of civil servants to make this classification. They absolutely do have the authority to do it. Since the Pendleton Civil Service Act of 1883, which created the original option for a civil service in the US, they have had the authority, presidents have had the authority to make classifications. It's kind of an obscure fact about civil service development in the US is that there was no one and done kind of implementation of it. The Pendleton Act allowed the president to classify. It didn't require the president to classify anybody in the competitive service. The reason for that is because of the constitutional provision that gives the president authority over executive branch officials, except for the ones named in the Constitution and the class of them requiring advice and consent. The president has the authority to appoint them. So Congress was never in a position to tell the president, actually, these are the people you need to have. The Congress was in the position to tell the president, hey, if you would like to extend merit system classification to new groups of people, here are some protections we can offer them. It was always voluntary for the president to do it. But because there was so much shared agreement between Republicans and Democrats for decades about the basic functions of the state, they both went along with it. It's never that it was unconstitutional or illegal for presidents to do this. It was just inconceivable that they would ever want to. And now one wants to. So that's the reason why we see that change. But it's a really big one. It will put can we make predictions of what will happen? It makes careers in the bureaucracy less appealing for high quality, highly educated professionals. It makes revolving door career paths more important. That is, you may spend some time in an agency in the Centers for Disease Control or infectious disease areas. Then when an opposite party opposed to your objectives takes control, you rotate out, spend a little time somewhere else, maybe some come back in. All of this translates to a loss of institutional quality and bureaucratic capacity over time. That continuity of bureaucrats that underwrites the quality and the consistency of policy frameworks will be damaged, will be changed a lot. I will also say, when you read the news, when you see actions by the president, what you see a lot about, what I read most about, is actions by the president that are asserting control, unilateral control for the president over policy decisions that the president probably doesn't have authority over, or it's at best questionable. So examples of this are the president's decision to cancel grants to universities that maintain, programs for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those grants have been issued pursuant to appropriations by Congress. The Constitution says very clearly that when Congress no money shall be spent except as appropriated by Congress, and by implication, when Congress appropriates $1, the executive branch has to spend $1. So it is a fairly well settled body of law that the issue is called impoundment. When the president holds back expenditures that are appropriated by Congress for a certain function, that's called impoundment, and it's a fairly well settled area of law, of constitutional law. The Supreme Court has always held the president does not have the authority in general to impound money. They might have a reason to declare like a budget emergency or an economic emergency. So Congress created a reasonably sensible law 50 years ago called the Budget Impoundment and Control Act that puts some structure, some regulation on the president's ability to do this. Congress basically said, all right, president, if you see an emergency, you can impound money for 90 days and then tell us, and we'll decide if we should be able to impound it or not. So Congress wrote a structure that keeps itself in the driver's seat and keeps it involved. And so part of what's happening in the executive branch is they're just not following. They're just saying like, well, we're the ones who write the checks. We're just not going to write them. We're not sending the money. And it's not even a strategy that I think the executive branch thinks they'll win in all cases. I think you have to know you're going to lose a lot of these in court when you get sued. When a university sues the government saying like, hey, we made a contract that means you give us a grant and you reneged on the contract, that's what courts are for. Is to resolve those disputes. And the executive branch has lost a lot of them. The point is not to win. The point is to make it costly for parties receiving those federal expenditures under law, more costly to do their work and distract them from the work that they're doing, and just basically make it harder. So you see a lot of actions like this. There are many others. I could talk for hours uninterrupted about it. But when you read about executive politics in the news, you read a lot about that. You read less about the structural issues on the relation between the bureaucracy and the executive branch. So that's why I wanted to tell you about some of those things. Those are major issues. They are going to have a big effect on how the government works going forward. So those are the main things I wanted to tell you from my point of view. I hope that is clear to you. Maybe there's some things that aren't and you'd like to fill in some details. So I'd be happy to take your questions, which I see one in the chat. I'd be happy to start there. How do you do? I'll leave it to you, Brody. How do you do this?
No, that's fine if you see it. Yes.
All right, I'll start with one in the chat from Renee. It says, how are these laws enforced? Trump keeps breaking laws with no repercussions. The repercussion is supposed to be, you lose elections. What the courts can do when the government illegally stops payment on a contract, courts can say, well, you have to pay them the money. Like they can, they'll give equitable, and some of you maybe are attorneys, and they'll say, well, they get equitable relief. Here's an injunction, or you have to pay them the money, or they'll demand performance of the contract, basically. So the loss for the government is simply they lose that case. But Renee, the question you ask is so important as to like the strategic structure of this situation from the Trump administration's point of view. They can't lose. Even if they lose in court, they still slow down the disbursement of the money, and they look to their supporters like they're fighting the fight against, whatever institutions in society are arrayed against their interests. And all that happens is a court says you have to spend the money that they were previously planning to spend anyway. There is no remedy. There's no punishment that a court can inflict on the president. That punishment is supposed to come from voters. So there's no bottom besides that.
Oh, wow. We have a few other questions. Ralph Ballart?
Yeah, the consensus that you talked about on the role of the bureaucracy has also been true for California. But I imagine if we had a Republican governor, they would try to make the same changes to the bureaucracy in California as we're seeing in Washington. What can you tell us about the situation for the California bureaucracy in that case?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there are some protections or some firewalls that would stop, a repeat of the federal situation in California. One of them is that, the Republicans that could ever be elected governor in California are different from nationwide Republicans in their center of gravity. Like our Republicans in Congress tend to be to the left of the Republican Party as a whole, for instance. There are exceptions to this. Some of them are firebrands. They always have been. Many of you remember, I don't know, Bob Dornan or people like that. But they tend to be to the left of the Republican Party as a whole. They tend to share certain basic commitments about what the state does. And they will still be governing as a minority party. The other relevant part of this is that, the California executive branch has a different kind of structure under the governor than the U.S. executive branch does under the president. The U.S. Constitution prescribes the president as the chief executive of the United States. The California Constitution doesn't. You have multiple executive officers in California government who are themselves elected. So that they work hand in glove with the governor, but that's a de facto arrangement because they're all Democrats and they want to advance within their party, so they know where their bread is buttered. That's not a structural legal arrangement that allows the governor statutory control over their agencies to the same degree. So that's a really big structural difference between many states and the federal government.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Ellis Goldberg.
Very interesting presentation. Thank you very much for doing that. In 2020, we said the cow got out of the barn, but let's close the barn door. And for 4 years, we had the opportunity to close the barn door, but we're not successful at doing that. And now we see the result of leaving the barn door open because now Trump has gone hog wild. So my question to you is, in 2028, when we have a new election, and hopefully we have a Democratic president and Congress, how can we close the barn door so this stuff never happens again? What kind of structural change do you think we have to make? And it's probably to the Constitution that protects us against a dictatorial president.
Yeah, this is a
this
great
gonna
question.
change?
Yeah, and many of us, many of us who study or have worked in government, are kind of trying to wrap our heads around this. And it's challenging because, we are in a situation where, well, I mean, for instance, there was the Colorado court ruling that Trump was ineligible to be on the ballot. Okay, in Colorado. That was a few years ago. That got to the Supreme Court very quickly, and they said, we're absolutely not doing that. And there is obviously the Supreme Court has a conservative majority. That's not a huge surprise, but we're not going to solve what ails us as a people politically through a tactic of, expelling this avatar of a movement as 80 million voters saw it, this avatar of a movement. I don't know the solution to this is actually to find common ground between people. That it really is an exercise of, a shared agreement and a common agreement among people that will make it impossible for a person of the persuasion of a Donald Trump to win in the first place. We were there for a long time. We all remember it. All of us, lived in a country like that for some time. I don't know how to find it back, but that's what we need. What will actually happen, I think, is a turn taking of raising the stakes, of trying to expel and repel the threat, and then even more egregious, outlandish actions to get beyond the attempted expulsions. But you talk about closing the door. Listen, well, this man's been convicted of dozens of felonies. This man, was ruled ineligible to be on the ballot by a state government, and we see an escalation of the tactics and an escalation of the structural conflict, that will, it's a break but don't bend kind of a system. There's not an easy accommodation, but it's just kind of all out existential attacks until something's really going to get broken. So I honestly, I don't see a solution through structural reforms. I see a solution through a shared agreement of a people that will, have the sense to say, well, that person is just, that person would be terrible in governing. Let's not have them. I wish I had a better answer, and I don't.
Wow, that's sort of scary. Okay, thank you. Jillian has a question.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really great presentation. I actually think my daughter studied under you at Cal.
Recently?
No, it's been about 10 years.
Oh,
But you might remember her. Her name's Miranda Yaver.
I sure do. Yes, I know. Absolutely, I know Miranda. Yeah, she's a professor at, I forgot where, but
University
she got a PhD at Columbia. Yeah,
She's at
University of
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I know Miranda. Well, give her my best.
I will.
Yeah.
So I think what a lot of us are seeing is Project 2025 is actually being implemented for those of us who read at least the outline of it. And it's more than a little terrifying. I know my daughter's lost grants. Beyond that, it's like the whole grant system of giving universities money to do research on behalf of the government, and then the government can license that to to corporations to be monetized and it's this beautiful cycle that has been more successful than anything, probably anything that anybody has ever envisioned in any country, and that's being broken. And I don't know if there's a way to repair that. It seems like he's out of his lane, but it also seems like like SCOTUS is okay, we'll just make a new lane. But like today, on top of all of that, with the grant saying that Harvard can no longer have international students. And it's, I assume that you have concerns about that happening to Cal. I'm a Cal Bear. But I mean, it's like the University of California is the most extraordinary thing. And, you know, what are the implications that you see coming? And are there things that we can do between now and 2026?
Yeah, this is really great. So I am involved specifically in extensive conversations about exactly this issue as it touches on academia. It's a great illustration of the executive politics hardball, and it's also kind of where we live. This is our bread and butter. So I just think it's really important. As a political scientist, I just really am. I'm struck by the fact that you cannot take, I don't know, half of your operating revenue from the government and not be the agent of the government. It is a simple structural relation. You can have a board of regents, you can have, governing bodies, you can have student stakeholders, but whether you're Harvard University and you're private, or whether the University of California, which is, literally a public agency of the state, you cannot take this much money from the government and not dance the tune that the government calls. And I'll tell you, Jillian, I have not made myself popular with my colleagues with what I'm about to say, but I believe it very strongly. We are fooling ourselves and playing a very dangerous game with our institutions if we think that we can push the executive branch of the US government back from these threats against us. We cannot. The university became, the university funding model you described became solidified in the longest period of basic partisan agreement that this country has ever seen between Republicans and Democrats about basic functions of the state, which is basically like, we'll give you money to do your egghead stuff, let us license it to corporations. What it really was in the 50s and 60s is, yeah, smash the atoms together, but just show us how to blow stuff up really effectively. And then we'll give you lots and lots of money. That's how the university science model was built.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the National Science Foundation was for decades. And it's expanded from that. If we in academia think that we can call the tune and the executive branch must follow it, we are fooling ourselves. So what you identify with the actions about Harvard's access of students, foreign students to Harvard is a great example. Can we sue the US government about grants and win? Maybe. We might. We might win on grounds of First Amendment. You can't cancel grants because of the content of what investigators find. That's a First Amendment violation. That's true. We should sue them. We should hold them to the First Amendment. You can't cancel grants after you already agreed to them. You're breaching a contract. That's true. We should sue them. You can't impound money that Congress has allocated. Absolutely true. But those are tactical wins. They're not strategic long-term wins because they don't solve the issue of a fundamental hostility between the Republican Party and the university. And I'll be honest with you, it alarms me that as the political parties in the United States have diverged further and further from each other in the last 15 to 20 years, the university, and this is a fact, the university has tracked more and more closely to one of those parties than the other. Mm-hmm. As a voter, as a resident, I have my positions about politics. I hope the good guys win. But as a believer in the institution of the university, it worries me. It's something that Miranda and I both study, is the nature of bureaucratic autonomy or agency autonomy from the state. It is really hard. Miranda would I'm sure affirm this, and I've talked about it with her many times. It is really hard for an agency of the state to maintain autonomy from the state if there is basic hostility between the agency and the government like half the time. That is just an existential threat. So it really deeply worries me. I don't know what to do about it, but it worries me.
I understand exactly what you're saying. It worries me a lot too. I think the thing that the subtext in all of this is that Donald Trump doesn't behave as a president. He behaves as a dictator. And as a president, he could see himself, one would hope that he would see himself as president of everything. It was, I think it was Jamie. Yeah. Anyway, there was some financial executive saying, we've learned that when there's a dictator with an autocrat, you don't criticize. You have to warm them up. You have to butter them up. You have to, and it's like galling to think that that's what we would have to do because, anyway, that
is the world we live in. And there is the control of the access of universities to foreign students is just such a great example of how we really are raising the stakes. Like if you can win the tactical battles, they are not out of tools. They are really not out of tools. The executive branch has, and like we could go back.
A ruthlessness. He has a ruthlessness about this.
For sure. And it's vindictive. And it's, you don't show me sufficient love. And if only you did. And these things are all alarming, but there is still, let's look behind what, we can only hope we're not meeting again in 4 years to talk about the Trump third term. What a disaster it would be. But suppose we're talking about candidate J.D. Vance. The university doesn't do better with Vice President Vance than we do with President Trump. No. If anything, we do worse. My point in saying this is simply to say, this is now a structural issue between the university and the Republican Party. And it's an issue for the foreseeable future. If we think we can win lawsuits and repel this threat, we have not even begun to contemplate the tools that the executive branch has to make life difficult for the current governing model of the university. So it is. So when we see these universities and they behave, and I know Miranda's an alumna of Columbia, which has been much in the news lately. We could see these universities and say
they're not getting their donation.
is craven. What's wrong? They should stand up to them. I don't think it's honestly realistic. The chancellor of these universities has an institutional demand to keep the lights on. And that's the problem.
Columbia hasn't done any better. Columbia has not done any better by bending the knee than Harvard has done.
Yeah, they're in for. We're in for, and that's concerning. We're in for a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
So thanks for your questions.
I don't
They're
want
really
to monopolize it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And now Richard Adler.
Yeah, really great to have you. Even though it's disturbing to get the rundown of that, we all are concerned is what's been happening to our country, and I guess we'll see how the nation reacts to all of these new actions that Trump is doing, and I guess we're in a position where we're just hoping the courts can save us to a certain amount, and then if everything turns out horribly for the American people, then we'll get a new, group of in the midterms and then in the presidential election after that. But we're going to look at the carnage, and I'm wondering if we'll be able to put into some safeguards in the future. If things get so bad, and I'm worried about FDIC and some of these safety organizations that we've always relied on to help us, and now Trump is cutting back on these things, and I guess it's going to take a couple plane crashes or something for people to get outraged. But I don't know.
This was so interesting about this that connects to the bureaucratic capacity side is once the planes are crashing, once the banks are failing, the bureaucratic capacity is already gone.
That's right.
It cannot be rebuilt by flipping on a light switch. When you disrupt that career cycle, and we're drilling really down into the weeds of how bureaucracies work, but they have this career cycle, developing expertise, sharing it with the new generation. And when that is disrupted, there's no store, there's no bureau, there's no capacity market to go to buy some more. It's gone. When the institutional knowledge is no longer in an agency, those people don't develop it anymore. Okay, if this keeps up for a few years, if this vandalism of agencies keeps up, okay, it's not that we go get those people back, it's gone. And that's the scary thing. So the planes can start crashing, and we will reach a point where we don't know how to make them not crash anymore. We don't know how to make the system work. And we can say this because we see it all the time across the world. Once bureaucratic capacity to deliver high quality outcomes in whatever the agency regulates, when it's gone, it's gone. And it's a really complicated problem if we look across the world of how do we raise bureaucratic capacity. Thousands of pages have been issued by agencies like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund on exactly this issue. And we have some ideas. It's not hopeless, but it's really, really challenging. I wanted to just address one thing you said, which is about the courts. And we have to be realistic about the use of courts in midterms. I like door number 2. That's a hope. But the courts they can't save us from this because they know that they can't really face down a determined executive branch. They don't have the power to do it. And the structure of American, when you read the Federalist Papers, or you read the least dangerous branch, they call it. And it's, if you look at the Federalist Papers, how much of it is devoted to courts, only a few of them, and only once they get to like Federalist number 70 or something like that. The meat and potatoes are the legislature and the executive. The courts have always been structurally in a weak position. Even look at the lore about Marbury versus Madison, the claim of authority for judicial review. It's kind of done by a trick by Justice Marshall over Thomas Jefferson. There's some really great literature on this. It's fun to read. But the fact that you need a trick is itself a revelation of you can't just go through the front door and say, knock, knock, we're deciding if what you do is legal. You got to use a trick because you need some nuance. That's a position the courts are in. There really hasn't ever been a time when courts have been able to face down a really determined and unified executive branch. And they're very protective. Courts, John Roberts is very protective of the court's legacy and its institutional perception of its legitimacy, of its tranquility of the institution. And so that means that they have to accept a lot of turmoil and act like it's actually legal. Because if they said, no, you can't do this, it's illegal, and then they can't actually stop it, they reveal a weakness that they're not willing to reveal. So that's that one worries me. But midterms are real. Elections are actually not going away. And that's a useful thing about decentralized election administration in this country. You can have a tyrant take over the United States, and they can't take over election administration in, say, New Mexico or Colorado or Washington. So we get aggravated at our institutional fragmentation, and that's real and it's a problem. But it does have some useful features, and that's one of them. So midterms are a good place to look for this. I
don't think I think we've never had a president that was so out of the mainstream, where most presidents have basic values of the way this country should operate and our democratic principles, and now that's been thrown away. And now we see how fragile it is when we don't have those people in power, and you can mess up the system like he has. I'm wondering if there's a way that we can give bureaucrats, whatever you want to call them, government workers, a little more, ability to keep a job, because you know, you're saying that we can't repair it. I would say we can't repair it if the people are afraid of trying to get the job and then losing it again with the next administration. So maybe it's possible to make it a little bit safer for these people to come back who have these skills, and maybe they still want to work, and maybe do some repair on a lot of these agencies.
I agree. Love the thought of it. Love the, you know, and the efforts are important. And you know, but these seem like arcane things. They really matter for how policy is administered. And that's really where the action is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I'm really sad to hear about the courts not having power. You're right, they can't enforce it. But anyway, Julian, you've already had a question, but you have another one?
Oh, you're muted, Jillian.
Yeah, you're muted.
How like life. So I didn't know if you've caught up with something that was passed by the House in the middle of the night because they're so proud of their work. In section 70302, restriction on enforcement. Have you caught up with this?
I haven't.
Oh God, it's very short, but it's painful. No court of the United States may enforce a contempt citation for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order if no security was given when the injunction or order was issued pursuant with Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65C, and whether issued prior to, on, or subsequent to the date of enactment of the section. Basically, it's, you know, defanging the courts. So they can do what they can say what they want, but have no enforcement. And it
Yeah,
feels
the contempt remedy is gone for executive actions.
That answers the question I had.
Yes, it does. We'll see if courts go along with it. I mean, the courts are pretty good at
and what are they
saying,
going to do?
we run our own show within the courts.
Yeah.
You know, but we'll see.
And last thing, I put in the chat a link to Michael Lewis's Who is Government, and I don't know if anybody else has read it. It's really exceptional, and it's talking about how important government employees are, and interviews some, tells their stories, and it really brings to life exactly what we're losing.
I'm
That's
so
it.
glad you mentioned that. It's a really great book. I absolutely second that endorsement. It will bring to life all the things we're talking about here. Like, why is this so important? So love to see that in there.
I don't see we have any more questions. This has been quite amazing and just very, very sad. And oh, here's Renee. Renee has a question. Thank you, Renee. Go ahead.
I do have a question. As a retired civil servant, I mean, we're very mission driven, and we like electeds when we were hired, would take the oath of office, and in that oath, we it's our duty to defend the Constitution against all threats, foreign and domestic. So collectively, is it possible for even some, like the many who were fired to really challenge this administration as a domestic threat? I mean, maybe in my dreams, but when we took that oath, we were so serious about it. We took it to heart.
I feel that. I feel you when you describe that. I thought, oh, I wonder if some of these people are or have been civil servants. Yeah, I know, and all the ones I've talked to and met, and this is what I spent a lot of my career kind of studying, like, how does this make the whole machine work? Yeah, I mean, the legal, I mean, as you surely know, the legal structure of challenges they can make is like one by one piecemeal, you can sue for wrongful termination and things. And, it's just a slow leak of air out of the tire. It doesn't have the repellent effect that collective, simultaneous, mutually supporting resistance really needs. But I think I'll go back to Michael Lewis's book, show people what the stakes are, show people why this matters so much, that this is actually like government is the people who implement the programs. You're not just standing there watching a machine do the work, you are the work. And people need to understand that. So I would say, it starts with raising awareness. And there's still, I mean, of all the threats we face, we still have a lot of collective power as a people when unified. And we have leaders that take advantage of division that weaken that. But if we find that unity, there really is still a lot of collective power there that can set this right. And so that's a productive direction.
The irony is that we would pride ourselves in making sure that the lights, that there was electricity and the lights worked and roads were paved, and the business of doing government and doing the work was to make people's lives so just kind of smooth and easy, so that when things went wrong, that people would get all pissed off and, oh, the government, right? But the majority of the time, the work that we were doing was right, we were doing our jobs and doing them well and making sure that the system worked for the greater good.
Those are the days.
It's tough. It's tough. It's tough.
And many millions still are, and there is a jeopardy, but that is still, I mean, we need to raise awareness and rise to the threat now before it really does become an emergency. We now see this kind of, this really alarming direction and potential future, but there's still time. That we're not done yet. There's damage. It's real, but there's so much that's already good that's in place, and that can be salvaged. So raising awareness, speaking up, those are good things to do.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any way that you can? I mean, it's come out of there's so much corruption by President Trump. Is there? I mean, can Congress hold him accountable for that?
The remedy, the accountability channel is impeachment, and it's just totally defanged. Okay. That's it. That's the only one. Impeachment, and wait till the next election and he loses. We sometimes look for courts to be the referees of politics, to say, hey, you broke the rules and now I come in and punish you. They're not. They are fully political actors. Their power depends on tacit acceptance by other branches of government. That really limits what they can do. They're not the referees. They won't act that way. They won't save us. So the impeachment remedy is totally defanged. I mean, the opposition party should still, quite responsibly challenge, make noise. But we're waiting for the people to find some unity and say, no, we're not doing this anymore.
You mentioned the Budget Empowerment and Control Act, and I'd never really heard of that before. And so, are you implying that that Trump is overstepping this by using that so much, or?
Yeah, oh, for sure, yes. I absolutely believe that what President Trump has done amounts to an illegal impoundment in many of these expenditures. USAID, U.S. Institute of Peace, but it's also a great illustration of, the objective of the government is to damage the objective of the president is to damage these agencies. They have many, many tools. I wish it weren't true, but it is true. They have many tools. So impoundment is simply saying, keep the agency as it is and just don't spend this money. But what then they can do is just say, well, we're just terminating people. or we take early retirements and we don't replace them. So then it becomes a labor force problem. And it's like, well, it's not that we're withholding the money. There's just nobody here to administer the program. That's really a new one. That really fundamental, assumption that, well, the executive branch wants people in the positions to administer the programs. That's not true right now.
Or
the president,
the ones who were rehired came into a building that had no computers and no office furniture.
at USAID.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great example, and yeah, it's like, well, we fired you by accident, come back, but the working conditions are far worse, and it's kind of just vandalizing agencies. But what it goes back to, it just comes full circle to what I said at the start, which is there is not a shared agreement about fundamental purposes of the state. And when you're in that world, one of the political parties says, I'd rather not have these agencies. I would just rather not have them. And it reflects, and there is a part of it that we have to you have to acknowledge, like, if you see the world as they see it, they really do face a bigger threat of non-compliance by the bureaucracy than Democrats do. That is a fact. It is true. Most civil servants are kind of center-left statist Democrats. They're not leftists in any way, but they're kind of center-left statists, and they're increasingly so. And as parties diverge from each other, that increasing share of civil servants that kind of lean towards like acceptance of fundamental properties of the system becomes more and more threatening to a political party that rejects them, that rejects that system. And so that puts us in a situation where it's just uncharted territory for the president to say, like, I'd rather not have people in these positions, because a lot of the accountability structures of the executive branch kind of rest on the assumption that the president wants the programs to be administered. And if they don't, they really have a new arrow in the quiver of just so many ways to, just kind of take the air out of them.
That seems to be the premise that Doge operated on.
Exactly. That's exactly the premise of Doge, is just, it's like going into your boiler, going into your furnace and, let's hit stuff with a wrench and see what happens.
Right.
Will that improve anything? No, don't really care. Not trying to improve it. Hope it breaks, So it's just uncharted.
Well, Dr. Gailmard, this has been very enlightening. I learned a lot of information. I'm sure everyone else did about this. And we so appreciate you coming and speaking to us, even though we're all more down now.
I need a drink.
I apologize for that. But
That's more realistic.
Yes.
at least we're realistic, and we can only look in the mirror. We will only save ourselves. So
Brody, ask the what gives you hope question.
Yeah, good one.
The what?
What gives you hope?
What gives you hope?
Oh, what gives you hope? Ooh.
what gives me hope is groups like this, to be honest with you. I mean, not to glad hand, I'll never see any of you again, except maybe Jillian's daughter, but it really does. This is the grassroots, the actual authentic grassroots of where democracy lives and rises and grows and nourish it. So that gives me hope that, when, we have some adjustments to make. We've had some in society. We have these big technological changes in the last 20 years have kind of thrown things topsy-turvy. I think we'll sort some of that out and find we actually really do have really basic fundamental shared commitments as a people. We can still constitute that people. And when we find those agreements, the politicians will get in line. So that gives me, I'm hopeful about that in the long run. It's going to be a rough decade, but I really am hopeful in the long run.
Which of your books do you recommend for us that might enlighten us if we want to read about this?
Oh man, well, that depends on your objective. If it, to be honest with you, is to be asleep fast, you can take your pick. I wrote a statistics textbook, and that one will nail it. If you want a totally different perspective, I mean, they look like social science. They look like academic social science. They have, this kind of modeling in it. It's like, what is this for? It's hard to understand. But the one I just wrote called Agents of Empire, it's about British imperial administration in the United States and how it created US institutions like separation of powers and judicial review and kind of where all these things came from the British imperial side. I mean, I study American institutions and never really understood that. So I just thought I should read a lot about this. And then I thought, okay, I have something to say, and this is a new perspective on this. So then I wrote that. So, that might be, that would help you kill some time at least. So
Earlier, we had talked about how many of us are going to our local little city, Walnut Creek, and having a protest against Trump and Musk. Do you think these protests are effective at all? If there's lots of people doing it or not?
Yeah, I think raising awareness is good. This is something we actually debate in social science as well. Is it beneficial for them to be violent or not? My view of the evidence and my view of the propriety, just as a citizen, is definitely no. But raising awareness, showing people you care, showing people there's energy, it does matter because you know why? When you drive down, whatever, Ignacio Valley Road, and you may think to yourself, I'm just one person. I can't do anything. But when you see 100 people, in Civic Park, it can make you think, actually, there's something to coordinate with here. There is some collective energy here.
We're getting
And that
thousands,
really is.
we're getting thousands every week in
Thousands.
creeks. The
That's
biggest was
amazing.
April 5th, we got over 3,000.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. So this is that kind of incubator, of that collective energy. People got to put themselves out there to make the difference. But what it really shows is anybody looking at that who thought, well, there's nothing for me to do, I can't possibly be involved, we'll look at that and say, oh, actually, yes, there is. So congratulations for that and kudos. That's great.
Yeah. Jennifer, do you have a question? You're muted.
I wanted to make a comment about, can we do anything and do the protests make a difference? I think the protests are absolutely working for us. It's pretty much all we have. I believe we are what we've been waiting for. And if you look at what we've done to Musk's business model, it's just, and that's from us. And that's extremely powerful. That pushes against Trump and loving Musk and all that we don't like about what he's doing. And it does push back on some of Trump's worst excesses. And if you read Robert Hubble, I highly recommend him. He does Substack, and you'll learn a lot of the improvements, the backlash that we are providing by doing these protests. They are growing. They show opposition, and no matter what Trump lies about, he wants to be liked. And these protests help push his unpopularity. So there is light in this tunnel.
It's down to
Totally
39%.
agree. It's a great
today.
summary.
Ellen?
No, I just said it's down to 39% today, Trump's popularity. Yeah. I just wanted to say this was an excellent session. And
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Maybe we
I
can invite
appreciate you all.
Maybe we can invite you back in the fall. You may have come up with some ideas, some new ideas for us.
We could check back in.
Great. Thank you.
Maybe I'll be at your protest. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your engagement so much and the work you're doing.
Thanks,
Good luck.
Professor.
Appreciate you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, that was very interesting. Our next speaker.
Sobering.
Yeah, I know. Our next speaker is Jennifer Tanner. She just spoke, but she's the leader of Indivisible California Green Team, which is the environmental arm of Indivisible's 80 groups all over California, and it focuses on helping to pass good bills and killing bad bills, especially those that have an impact on climate and democracy reform in California. And the Green Team works with groups from all over the state, and through these coalitions, the Green Team has helped to pass or kill 21 bills that impact California. And I'll let Jennifer talk to us about Senate Bill 40, Senate Bill 42, and opposition to Assembly Bill 938. I get emails from Jennifer Tanner every day. Thank you, Jennifer. And I'm so happy you could come to our meeting and speak.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy to join you here today. What I'm here to talk about is SB 540. It's called Pathways. I want you to help me stop it. And it is the worst climate bill I have ever seen. And I've been doing this a long time. So a little bit of background. California, and this is wonky, geeky stuff about energy, which is people don't understand it, but of course it affects our bills, it affects our climate, it affects a lot of things. California is a single state regional operator. So regional operator is the operative word, and that in RO, so we refer to an RO as a regional operator. That means as Californians, we control our own energy. This bill, SB 540, would give up that independence and turn control over our energy to a group of Western fossil fuel dependent coal states forever, on the promise that we're going to save money and clean, affordable energy. None of that's true. It won't be clean, it won't be affordable, we will be outvoted by coal states. But the proponents have fooled people to think it's worth it and that there are no risks. The risks are enormous, because it would allow those coal states to determine our future instead of us if we join them. And if we join them, we can never change our mind and we can never get out. And with Trump as president, who promises to subsidize coal, and with an executive order, he promises to decimate California's clean energy, SB 540 actually gets rid of the protections from Trump that we now have in place. It's insane that I'm even talking about it. I've been working on this since November, becoming an expert on this horrible bill, that we're even here because the proponents have so fooled everyone that when I talk to them, they're like, oh no, we can get out. It's going to be clean. It's going to be affordable. And it's just not true. And so it's really hard. But eventually, when I talk to people, I'm able to convince them to join us. The Green Team has formed a coalition of 130 groups representing over 130,000 California constituents opposing SB 540. And also, besides the 130 groups, other big groups have joined us in opposition. That's TURN, CALSA, which is the solar rights group, Center for Biological Diversity, Consumer Watchdog, which is such an excellent, fabulous group, Food and Water Watch, Environmental Working Group, two unions, the Boilermakers and the Iron Workers, so even some labor is opposed to it, and Berkshire Hathaway and market manipulators are the energy behind it, because they have tried to push this bill in 2018 and we killed it. They tried to push it in 2023 and we killed it because it's a bad bill. But somehow they are able to come up with, they spend a whole year trying to figure out a new way to sell it. And they just are making up this stuff that people are actually, some of our legislators are accepting. And it's just, for some reason, this bill is moving forward. It's pretty terrifying. So it's a wonky subject. It's very complicated. And yeah, thank you for a question. I want you to ask me questions so I have a sense of how to talk about it, because I could talk honestly for days. And I just don't want to get too wonky and geeky to confuse people and talk for your interest. So Sharon and Ellis, what's your question?
We have some influence on several state legislatures. In particular, Jerry McNerney, Rebecca Bauer-Cahan, and our newly elected senator, but he was an assembly member, Tim Grayson.
Okay, Grace, only one we need right now. So right now, where we are, McNerney was actually pretty good. You know, we've gone through Senate Energy, we've gone through Senate Judiciary, and now we're in appropriations. And in Senate Energy, McNerney was one of the, and I met with his staff, and they were really good, and he asked really good questions. But what they do, and this is one of the horrible things, we're complaining about Trump and the Republicans, but the Democrats, honestly, are quite sleazy as well, especially when they have, you know, in California, they're the major majority, so they can do whatever they want. And the author, one of the authors of the bill is the chair of Senate Energy. They looked for and they were able to convince a climate leader to author this bill. That's helped them because people go, well, if Becker's authoring it, must be good. He's helping the data centers in Silicon Valley because they want it, because they're happy to get coal energy for their data centers. They don't really care about.
So is Jerry in favor of 540?
I think he's against it, but as I was kind of going on a tangent here. What they do is they go, look, we don't like this bill. It's got a lot of problems. And the author says, oh, I'll solve those problems. I'll give you amendments that will solve it. He gives them amendments. They don't solve it. But what McNerney said is, you know, I reserve the right to change my vote if you don't give me the amendments that I want. I don't know what he's going to do. So they all pass it because they're saying, I'm going to give you a courtesy vote. He voted for it, but he asked really good questions.
What about Rebecca?
Well, she's, you know, she's in the assembly, so we're not in the assembly now. If we want to kill this bill, the best chance is to kill it now. I don't know what's going to happen. And, you know, what you can do is Grayson is in appropriations. And as it happens, tomorrow's the day is the final day for appropriations. So if all of you want to call him tomorrow and say, don't pass this bill, hold it in appropriations, you know, wait until we get more answers.
I hate to tell you this, but when we've interacted with Grayson, he hems and haws and won't give us an answer, and we don't particularly care for his votes. So that's not very hopeful.
Not very helpful.
The
whole thing is
He gets lots of fossil fuel money.
Yeah. So are there other people, state senators?
It's not optimistic, honestly. The best hope we have right now to stop this bill is Senator McGuire, who is the pro tem, the leader of the Senate, and he wants to run for insurance commissioner next year. So if he wants to run for insurance commissioner and we say to him, if you pass this bill that's really bad for California and we know it, then how can we trust you with our insurance? So we have people, the things I've been sending you, Brody, I don't know if you've made calls or not, but what I've been asking everybody is, no matter who your legislator is, call Caballero, who's the head of appropriations, call McGuire, who's the head of the Senate. Everybody can call those two, and I've included in the email that you have the telephone numbers. And if you want to send that to your people who I don't have their emails, and ask them in the morning to call those two people, because we have heard McGuire saying, because I meet with McGuire's staff and I email them regularly, and they're like, yeah, he's getting a lot of calls. He's getting a lot of calls.
McGuire is a Democrat from Marin County, which is very liberal. So I'm really surprised if he would vote for.
Because the pressure of lobbyists, even for Democrats, is very strong. Like you said, you know that Democrats get a lot of money for fossil fuels. You know, he wants to run for insurance commissioner. He wants to get funding money for his election. And, you know, Google and Microsoft and Amazon, they love this bill. It's the first time, I told you this bill has been around 3 times, but this time is the first time that the tech bros are for it, because with their AI and their data centers, they need a lot of energy. And they're like, because our energy, even though our energy costs have gone up, that's because PG&E's making record profits, and that's not cool. But our energy use is straight, and we really should not even be increasing our energy costs.
Right.
But with the data centers and AI, we need lots of energy. and they're like, hey, let's bring the coal. We don't care. So they're funding some of this, no question about it. So we have to put pressure on McGuire. You may get funding from them, but we won't vote for you. So that's why what I sent you, Brody, is call McGuire and call Caballero, and that's our only hope, really. Because everybody else is like, I'll do whatever leadership tells me.
Yeah. I'll try and find that email right now. Jillian?
Yeah, thanks for the work you're doing. Have you worked with California environmental voters yet?
California environmental voters is for this bill.
Right. If you can get them to adopt your bill as one of their.
Of course, but they are supporting this bill, and I'm not going to get them to
They're
change.
supporting this bill?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
They used to be California League of Conservation voters.
They were, and the thing is, there are groups, like I said, NRDC. So a little bit of background in the year 2000, there was something called the Enron crisis. Do you guys know about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So for those who don't, in 2000, under NRDC's advice, NRDC, we trust Enron. Let's do this deregulation. And that deregulation killed California and cost us $40 billion. So NRDC and Environment California and California environmental voters, there are corporate energy people that just go with corporations, and they don't really get that local clean energy, rooftop, microgrids, local stuff is really where we save our money. They believe in the utilities, PG&E and SoCal Edison, the ones that are burning down California, the ones that are raising our rates. So sometimes you can't, NRDC and in California environmental voters do a lot of really good things, but on this, but they're against rooftop solar. If you know that they've killed rooftop solar in California, they have helped contribute to its demise, and they like this kind of deregulation, and they're just wrong, and you can't convince them. But the fact that I have 130 groups is because the smaller groups that aren't influenced by money and corporate kind of things, they get why this bill is so dangerous. So I can't convince them. That's just how it is.
I would really like an opportunity to talk with you because it doesn't make sense. California League of Conservation voters was absolutely the most liberal of all of the environmental groups.
So we can talk about this, and
I have connections there, and if I could get them, if they will adopt this, they will reach out to.
They're not going to adopt this. So what's happened is NRDC loves this bill because they've always loved corporate energy, the big energy companies. They think that's the answer. And NRDC has slowly infiltrated California environmental voters. And they're in the board. And I don't think you're going to get them to change their mind. I would love it. I have tried to meet with Fatima regularly, and I just can't. So if you want me to connect with anybody, I would be very happy to do that. And talk, because in a debate with somebody on the other side, I will win because I have law and facts and backup to everything I say. Because this Enron crisis that we're talking about, the reason we got out of the Enron crisis is because in that year, magically, because the CPUC, the California Public Utilities Commission, if you're aware of how bad they are captive to the utilities. They allow the rates to go up. They don't make them fix anything. That's why the wires are bad and we have wildfires. It's a terrible thing. But for one brief moment in history, right after the Enron crisis, Loretta Lynch was the chair of the CPUC. And she was fantastic. She understood the market manipulation, and she came in and got us out of the Enron crisis. It cost us $40 billion and we're still paying it off, but she got us out. And she's the one who put in these laws that protect us in California, so that we have a law that actually says, off of her, that says California energy has to be good for our climate, good for the environment, good for our health, which is not coal. You know, you can't bring in coal and say, the California law would say, no, it's not good for our health, and it has to be affordable. That's the law we have in, and this bill would get rid of that law, so we don't have it to protect us. And Bill Julian was her attorney at that time. And for the last, since November, I've been working with Loretta Lynch and Bill Julian, and all the things that I'm talking about comes from their knowledge, because I'm good at pulling groups together, but I always deal with experts, and that's who I've been studying with, is them. And they have all the talking points, and that's why I could debate anybody, because I've learned from them what the real arguments are. And when you talk to these other people, they have airy-fairy arguments, clean, affordable energy, we're going to be an island, you know, this kind of bullshit talking points. But when you really nail it down, like I can say to them, no one's ever gotten out of a regional operator. They say, oh, we have unilateral withdrawal, we can get out. And I'm like, no, Harvard did a study. Nobody ever gets out. Once you get in, you never get out. So they're just buying all these stories. Yes?
If you could put a link in the chat that I could go and find more information, that would be really useful. I worked
If
for
you
years.
give me your email, I will send you the letter that details every talking point I'm talking about. I'll
Okay.
send you 2 different letters. One is our older letter, and now we have a new letter that it's like, it's even worse because it's the appropriation with dealing with fiscal arguments. We have in that second letter that I'm going to send, the Pathways document has 170 pages. And in it, it actually says, is the RO going to be responsible for anything? No. So if there's a default, who will be responsible? California's CAISO. So there you go. We give up all the tools to fix things, but if there's a default financially, we'll be on the hook. It's right there in black and white. And it's going to be in that letter that I will send you. So if you give me your email, I will send you both letters.
I put my email in the chat, and anything that you have that will have links that, you know, to find find backup information to
The
support.
links are, so in the letter signed by 132, see, I'm trying to, it's
Whatever, just send
letting
it to me and I will check it out and get
somehow I
get
can't,
it around to people.
Jillian. It's not, I'm not able to, Jillian,
Elliot.
ELLIOTT
Yeah.
at Yahoo.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That is fantastic. And any help, because I've been really trying to get to, I can pretty much get to any group, any legislator. I've met with all of them, all 15 of Senate Energy, their staff, all 13 of Senate Judiciary, all 5 of so what have I met with? So many of them, and they hear me, but the pressure is, you know, the Democrats want us, you know, we don't want to go against Becker, and it's the Democrats want to support it. Maybe someone down the line will get rid of it. It's really, really depressing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Isn't Becker usually pretty liberal?
You know what? I have such a good relationship with Becker. He helped me kill a bad PG&E bill. And last year he wanted to pass his a Senate bill on rooftop solar, and he wasn't doing well. And he asked me for help, and I helped him pass his rooftop solar bill. So I worked very closely with him. And then Governor Newsom killed it after it passed. And I went to Becker and I said, this is a bad thing. Why are you doing this? And I spent a lot of time talking to him. And in the end, he said the governor wants it. And why the governor wants it, you know, he's got us. It's just, this is inner stuff, but labor, not all labor, because I told you some labor, but IBEW, this is all inner stuff, but IBEW, led by Scott Wedge, who's their lobbyist, he wants the bill because they've made a deal with the coal states, and IBW will have lots of jobs in the coal states. And so he's pushing Newsom and the different legislators to pass this. Newsom's going to get money somewhere for his presidency, and he doesn't care. He'll sell out California if he gets all this money from labor, the IBW labor, to fund his presidency. It's just bad. It's bad.
Yeah, it does sound very bad. Oh, wow.
It's bad, and yet, we end up having the same problem with the refineries where I am, where the unions are very much in support of refineries.
Because of their jobs, for their jobs.
For their jobs. And with all due, and this isn't not about what you're talking about. This is just me editorializing that Democrats need to stop being and having such a purity issue, because we keep losing elections by having this purity standard that we can't meet. Anyway.
Well, yes, there's something to be said for that, but we're not actually that pure, because we actually are just, if you look at how much we've done for the climate, it's just gone worse and worse and worse. We're not passing really good climate bills. The really good ones get killed. Rooftop solar is the greatest, cheapest, cleanest way for the future. And Newsom and Rivas are just killing rooftop solar. It's almost dead. And then there was this little bill to pass last year that would have just helped it a little bit that Becker had. And it passed. You know, I helped make that happen, our green team, and Newsom vetoed it. So we're not pure. Maybe we used to be, but we're not now. It's a disaster. So
Renee has her hand up. Renee, what's your question?
Yeah. So you had mentioned that Turn is, I guess, working with you and in opposition to the bill. They've taken.
So Turn's got a support if amended. They have amendments that they want, and we have put in amendments that we've said it's a terrible bill and you should kill it. But if you have to pass it for whatever reason, here are the amendments you need to put in, and I can tell you what they are, and that will tell you why the bill is so bad. So Turn has that. Like, instead of, we would say oppose unless amend, they're saying support if amend. And a lot of their amendments have been accepted, but not all of them. So they are still in an opposed position.
Okay.
So in terms of the amendments, just to show you how bad this is, these are the amendments that we're saying, if you have to pass it. The first one is the way the bill is written. It's like, so CAISO is, like I said, the way we keep our energy is CAISO controls it, but that doesn't mean CAISO is a good organization, because market manipulators are in CAISO, just like the CPUC has not good people because Newsom put them in, so CAISO doesn't really have good people. So they are in charge, but they make mistakes. Like when we had the blackouts in 2020, and the rumor was we don't have enough energy. We had plenty of energy, but CAISO was selling energy out of state when we had our high summer. So we didn't have enough energy because we were selling it. We're calling it a glitch, even though it was a market manipulation, because they get to raise rates when that happens. But because we are in control of CAISO, and we have, it's called 205 filings, which is the control we would be giving away to these Western states, we could say to CAISO, hey, there's a glitch, fix it. And they fixed it. And so now we shouldn't be having blackouts and selling energy when we need it. So the way the bill is written, and CAISO wants this bill because they will have a field day in market manipulation, and they make money. They make money no matter, the more that rates cost, the more they make money. They get like a percentage. So the bill is written, we don't know about the job loss. The certain studies we need more information. And the bill says, when we get that information, we give it to CAISO, and CAISO is going to make the final decision. And we're saying, we don't want CAISO to make the final decision. They already know, we know they want it. Bring the bill when you get all the information, which we don't have yet. It's like a blank check. bring it back to the legislature so the legislature looks at the information and votes. That's our First Amendment we're asking for. Like, that's a no-brainer. Don't give up your authority. Number two, this law we put in, it's called 345.5B, that says California energy has to be healthy and good for our environment and affordable. The first thing 540 does is gets rid of that. And we're saying, if you have to get rid of it, replace it with has to be consistent with California law, which is the 345. So that's the second thing that needs to be in there. The third is they say, oh, if we change our mind, we can withdraw, we can get out. And that's not true because no one has ever, regional operators are under the regulation of FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, of which Trump is the head. The president is the head. So we're saying, when you say we can withdraw just by putting it in an amendment, you can withdraw. It's like it's not true. No one has ever left a regional operator because FERC has to give you permission to leave, and FERC has never let anyone leave. And if Trump's the head of FERC, you really think Trump's going to let California leave a place where they get to be manipulated by FERC and also the coal states? No, they won't. So the third amendment is FERC pre-approves our withdrawal. They won't do it, but it's a reasonable thing to ask. And then the fourth is we would be changing California Corporation for a Delaware corporation. Why would we want to be in Delaware? Because there's no controls there. California has a lot more controls and it's more protective. So those are the things we're asking for because we're just giving away everything and we can't get out and change our mind. Any more questions? And by the way, the CCAs are all very confused. You know what CCAs are, community choice? You guys don't know what that is? Okay, I'll just confuse you.
MC, no.
We know it. Yeah, we know about CCAs.
Oh, okay. So,
Are they MCE? Like, is that one of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the
Community choice
CCAs,
aggregators.
because someone at the top of the CCAs thought they're going to save money and they don't even realize that it's going to cost their ratepayers money. CCAs will save money, but the ratepayers will pay more. So they're for it as one whole group. But the individual CCAs hadn't really voted. So there was one that hadn't voted yet called AVA, and they were leaning towards voting for it because the guy in charge of that CCA was like, yeah, it's great and we should do it. And I had the bandwidth and I got involved with that CCA and sent them my letters. And as a result of my involving it, when they voted on it, one of the guys read my letter and all the reasons why we shouldn't do it. And they voted not to do it because when people get the information, it's like, because they're told, oh, there's no problems. We've solved all our problems and we can get in and out. It's voluntary. They just say this airy-fairy stuff. And then when you say it's not true and you back it up with facts, they go, oh, okay, well, then we shouldn't do it. And they didn't do it.
Whoa, thank you for your work. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's really, it's so intense. I normally, as the green team, sometimes do 3, 4, 5, 6 bills a year. I'm doing just this one and I'm utterly exhausted. It's actually affected my health. It's so overwhelming to try to go against this tsunami of misinformation and bought legislators that are just sold on this, and you just have to one at a time tell them. And even when you tell them, they're like, yeah, but we're gonna give a courtesy pass. So it's very, very hard. So that's why we have to target McGuire, and that's our only hope because he wants to run for insurance commissioner and he has to show us that we can trust him.
And he's from very liberal Marin County. I'm just real surprised.
So is McGuire a support, has not taken no position? Or
We don't know. McGuire, if you didn't bother him, he'd let it pass. I'm sure, because that's what the push is to do. So you have to fight them and say, no, you can't.
Well, I mean, he probably went to MCE and, asked them what they thought.
Yeah, and they said yes, but that MCE is not enough. It's this guy, Scott Wetch, the lobbyist for IBEW. Labor wants it, and they generally give labor what they want unless you really push hard.
Except for McGuire hates PG&E.
That's what he says.
Hmm.
But look at what he does. So
Mhm.
just to tell you about McGuire, he had a bill that was to give $30 billion to PG&E to do undergrounding. And wasn't even a major bill for me. I probably had, I don't know, 20 groups opposing him. But even the 20 groups, he didn't like that because he wanted this bill. And they came to me to stop opposing it. And I said, no. And then they wanted to get rid of CEQA so that PG&E could do this. And so he hates PG&E, but he was giving them $30 billion. So I don't know. And I would say how can you tell me you hate PG&E and you want to give them $30 billion to do undergrounding? Why don't you give them money to fix their wires, which is cheaper, and then we won't have these wildfires. And the undergrounding will take 80 years. It's never going to happen. It's just crazy. So what happened with this bill is I was fighting 2 other bills that were really terrible that I was successful in killing, and I wasn't well. And he came to me one more time after they put the secret back in again and said, will you eliminate your opposition? I said, yeah, I'll just go neutral. I'm not going to support it, but I'll go neutral. And I was working with Tern on this because Tern was also opposing it. And so we let go of our opposition. And then in the next minute, that 30 billion became 90 billion because they were going to give that money undergrounding for SoCal Edison and for San Diego Gas. And that's what passed. From 1 minute to the next, we dropped our opposition and then it went to 90 billion, $90 billion for them to do undergrounding. Why are we paying for them to do undergrounding? So I don't know where McGuire is. Honestly, I don't know. I'm praying he does the right thing. I put so much pressure on him. And Indivisible Marin, which is a huge, one of our biggest indivisible groups, joined me in meetings with him and with McGuire's staff. And 350 Bay Area Action, you know how big they are. They're in Marin. Laura Nish, the head of it, joined me in meetings. So the Green Team and those 2 McGuire groups were pushing against him come on, what are you going to do? And so I don't know what they're going to do. I wasn't thrilled with the final meeting that I had. I didn't hear stuff that excited me. I heard, well, it looks like we're going to save a lot of money. That's what I heard. And I was like, no, so they're saying the Brattle study, look how much we're going to save $800 million a year. Isn't that great? And I'm like, no, because the Brattle study is if all 10 groups, states join us, but most of them have gone off to another regional operator. What we're left is the 5 coal states, and that maybe will save 300 million. That's not 800 million. So already making up lies. And of that 300 million saving, that's not retail, that's wholesale costs. So it's going to cost so much more than that. We're not going to save the 300 million. And in addition, we've got transmission lines that we have built all over to all these states. And that's why we have 30% of our energy from out of state. We already have that. We've paid for that. We would have to pay for transmission lines to the coal plants.
So let me ask
That's
you
going to
something.
wipe out all our
I'm just trying to figure out sort of who are the heavy hitters who are, with you. What about Loretta Lynch? And I know it's getting late.
Loretta Lynch is who I've been working with to get all my facts. She's part of my team that we've been working with.
Yeah, she's
Loretta Lynch and Bill Julian, who helped us out of the Enron crisis, have taught me all of the facts so that I can talk about it.
well, she's a heavy hitter.
She's fantastic,
Yeah.
but it's not enough. Because you know what they say? I mean, I've heard oh, the Enron crisis is so long ago. It's a
Yeah.
different
Well,
time. We have protections in place. No, we don't. We have them in place, but you're ready to get rid of them.
mm,
They just have these stupid arguments.
well, I'm
Really,
turning it
really.
back to you, Brody. I'm exhausted. I've had a long day.
And
They're all long
Yeah.
days because we have to fight
They're all long days.
we have to fight the Republicans, and then we have to fight the Democrats in California.
Yeah, sadly.
well, Jennifer, we
I'm,
both,
I'm fighting Democrats on the crypto stuff, trying to get to our public
Oh
pension.
my God, the crypto
That's
stuff.
the whole thing.
Yeah,
but-
but that's exactly, Democrats are just as
Yeah,
corrupt.
no, yeah,
The crypto is going to
they're
take
on
down our
board.
economy, and then we're really screwed.
yeah, I know.
I mean, I don't know what we're going to do about that. That's even Schiff and
Well,
Kelly
not yet, but
and not Kelly, Gallego got $10 million
I
from
know.
crypto.
I know, it's bad. It's bad. That's a program, Brody, for you.
Jeff, yes. We used to have
It is.
on, I don't know
It
if we
It's a
can-
program for
yeah.
you.
We all have to call our Democratic leaders and demand
Yeah,
not
no,
support the crypto.
yeah, they have their hands out too when the crypto lobbyists are coming in with pockets full of money.
There is no long-term view of what's going to happen to our dollar and our economy with crypto. We're funding criminals with crypto. Who has crypto? People that don't want to show you where they got their money from. It's like, these are not like an alternative money. This is dirty, laundered money.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. All right, I'm going to turn it back to you, Brody, because I got to jump.
Well, yes, it's getting late. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing with us. We're going to have you back because this has been very, very interesting and enlightening. And we'd love to have you come back and speak too, again. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me, and then I will reach out to Jillian and
Lillian Elliott.
and if you could get people to call McGuire,
In chat, yeah.
the one I sent you today. Do you need me to send it again?
I put it in chat, the information.
Oh yeah, but what you put in chat.
If you go up,
Oh yeah, perfect. It's just the top part. Really, that's what's going to make the difference.
Right.
McGuire and Caballero, just that. If you
Yes.
just do that,
yes.
that would be great. Thank you very much. Nice to meet all of you, and
Thank you very much. Yes.
okay. Take care.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Oh my goodness, Mike McGuire. I mean, I go to Marin County Democratic parties all the time, and he's one of the main liberal leaders in that area. And so this is just really disconcerting to hear about Mike McGuire is even, hasn't gone in, against this. Wow. Well, anyway, I'll try and have that information I have in chat in our next email. Although I think we have to call tomorrow. So everybody, please go and chat and see where I put the phone numbers for McGuire and Caballero, and make your phone call to kill that bill. Yeah. So thank you all. Does anyone have any good ideas? Next month we're going to have District Attorney Dinah Becton come speak.
Great.
And we supported her, and our club actually gave her money both times she ran for office, and she used to be a judge, and she's just
Yeah.
a remarkable leader.
We had her at my house.
Yeah, and we really want to hear her, and because of the recall. I mean, I've seen the people, the recall site, and some of them are even talking about another district attorney, and they don't, and the person that had quote evidence said they suspected. I mean, there's no evidence, and so I can see why the attorneys just couldn't take them on to help them. So but anyway, yeah, so the recall against Dinah Becton is just awful, and I think I have it in my email to join that and sign this, support for Dinah Becton. Anyway, thank you, everybody. That's left.
Thank you, Brody.
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for coming.
Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.